Hi, this is Jim Gibson. Thank you for coming to my channel today. Very much appreciated. Today we're going to talk about how to get paid. And a lot of people need to know this because there's a lot of companies out there that really sometimes they don't get paid. And there's been a couple times I didn't get paid and I learned my lesson. And I've learned how to do certain things to ensure that you're going to get paid. And if you're not going to get paid, how to win in court. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer, okay? So, get legal advice, and these are suggestions. So don't text me back or comment back that that I don't know what I'm talking about legally in your state. Each state is a little different. My background is ran an IT company. We were nationwide. We installed systems all over the United States. Had a lot of subcontractors. I had to make sure things were done right and according to standards. And I also had a lot of employees and thousands of customers. I grew it from zero customers all the way up to a pretty decent sized company that did a lot of work and made a lot of money. But I've learned some lessons on the way. And some of the lessons I've learned on the way, we're going to talk about today. And I affectionately call them scars. Some people say, well, that's wise that you put that in the contract. That's really a lot of wisdom. Yeah, maybe, because maybe if you never heard it before, it is. But for me, they're results of injuries to my business and injuries to me, so I call them my scars. And, it's experience. Sometimes that's what all experience is. Making wise decisions is based on making unwise decisions in the past or not doing things appropriate. So let's get started. If you're starting a new business, fantastic, man. This is great. This is for you. If you're in the service business, like I was, IT, service, things like that, putting wires behind the wall, building data centers, managing computer networks and everything else, this really applies to you today. So the first thing you need to do is you need to find a lawyer. Yes, you do. And even if you don't have a lot of money, find a lawyer, but find a lawyer that has your specialty. And what I mean by that is not someone who knows your business intimately. I don't mean that, but you need to find a lawyer who specializes in business. So there's some lawyers, specialize in divorce, and there's some trial lawyers, things like that. Real estate lawyers, if we're talking about real estate here, which may not apply, but that's totally different. What you need is a lawyer who specializes in business and understands contracts and stuff like that. And if they do specialize in business, they're going to understand contracts and things like that. So you need to get a contract. Now, that contract has to have certain things in it. And of course, the contract is signed after the salesperson gets an agreement with the proposal. So they propose a certain amount of, someone says, I need 10 outlets in my small little suite, and you write down 10 outlets. We got to write down other details, Cat 5e, Cat 6, things like that. Categories, they're called if you're not in the IT industry. You're going to provide so many computers, you're going to provide a patch panel, you're going to provide telephones, you're going to provide a router. All that needs to be in the sales agreement. And then what you need to do in that sales agreement is include other things, and that's your contract. So the other things you include is what I call the 50-40-10. So if you sign the agreement, then at that day, before we act on anything else, this is what I used to tell customers, that I'm going to need that 50% down on the contract. Give me 50% down, and we'll order the parts. And I'll give you a date when we'll be here. Now, the second thing is, the 40% payment. And that 40% payment needs to be clear, that 40% payment needs to be paid the day you show up to do the work. Now, if this is multiple day type of work or week work, obviously you're not going to pick up a check at that time. And we're going to talk about different type of customers a little later on and when you would do this and how you would do it differently. I'm talking basically small business under 25 employees maybe or something like that, down to 1 employee. You need to spell this out very clearly. That when you show up with the equipment, and let's say it's a multiple day thing, you need to include a little phase in here that they sign for that equipment. That at that point they are responsible for that equipment. They don't own the equipment yet, but they are responsible for that equipment. So if it takes feet and walks out in the middle of the night, the customer pays, not you, because they're the ones with the key to the front door. You can't secure a building. So if you're showing up with equipment and all of it doesn't get distributed and put on the desk, then it's their responsibility to make sure the equipment's secure. Of course, you got to communicate this clearly and remind people because people are busy. So you pick up the second check when you show up. So let's say most jobs in the IT field that I was in could be done in one day. So you show up with the equipment. You would say to the person when you first show up, I'm going to be completing this project today, and I'll need to pick up a check before we leave. And just make sure they say, yeah, okay, I got my checkbook. Yeah, I'll be ready to do it. Yeah, it's according to the contract. Sometimes they'll say, I didn't think of that. I thought you'd give me a 30-day invoice. Unless you do a background check, and unless you look at their credit history and things like that, there's no 30-day. The second thing you want to make sure that's, or let's say the last thing, 10%. Well, 10%, hold on to that for 30 days, I would say. You got a 15-year warranty on the cabling, and you got a year warranty on the equipment or whatever it is. But at the end of 30 days, I need that final thing. And of course, there's ways to ensure that you get that last 10%. And there's certain things you need to go through to get that. But you got to let them know, and they have to agree that you own the equipment until you get that 10%. You own all the equipment, not just 10% of the equipment. You own it all, because that's a leverage. If you have to go to court or anything else, you can do all this, by the way, with a smile on your face. You don't have to be nasty about it. But you own the equipment. That's what it says in the contract, and you have a right to take it back for non-payment. And they have to give you permission to be in the building to take it back. So you got the 50, the 40, and the 10 in the contract. Now, the last thing you have in the contract is no changes to the contract unless they're in writing. And that sounds like really tedious and everything else. You get everything in writing, an email or something. It's not really. What we used to do is we would have forms that we could fill out that were called add-delete forms. And so if if we were putting something up on the wall, equipment, hanging equipment, and they decided they needed one more outlet, well then a technician can fill this out. He just fills it out, one additional outlet at so many, at a certain percentage or cost or whatever else, and you'd write that down. Then you would sign, they would sign, or the technician would sign, and they would sign. And then it becomes part of the governing contract. So you have to have the add and deletes assigned to the contract, and you have to go with the 50, 40, 10. Pretty much. Now, let's talk about different types of customers, because some of this does not apply to all customers. And I would say, someone's calling you up and all they want is one particular outlet on the wall, or something that a technician can do within an hour or two. Then you just, you trust them for it. You charge them. So the thing you can do too is what we used to do is say, a technician will be there at a certain time. And I never promised a particular hour, by the way. It would be early a.m., late a.m., early afternoon, late afternoon. I would say things like that because people, if you give a time, they hook into that. And if you have traffic issues, your technician's never going to show up on time. But what you need to do is sometimes if it's a brand new customer, you don't know who they are or anything else, you just send your technician out. But before you send it out, you say, you will need to pay today by check or credit card. So how would you be paying? And that's not unreasonable to ask that. That's a new relationship with that person. It's too small of a job to do a background check and a credit check and all this other stuff. So you just say, I prefer a credit card. And you should be able to accept credit cards or transfers of funds. So, you just ask for a credit card, things like that. So at the end of the deal, the technician texts you and tells you what the cost is. And you should have a form that, when you start a job, when you finish a job, and how you do all that. You should have all that, and that's for another video, because that does make a big difference. And so your customer service rep turns around and says, okay, my guy was there for an hour and a half. We're going to charge him X amount of dollars. You call the customer and you say, this is your charge for today. I'd be happy to email your invoice, but I need to get payment. And the technician needs to support you on that too. So when the technician shows up with all their tools in hand and they say, I am here to fix such and such, and I'll need to pick up a check at the end of the time that I'm here, or you prepared to do that. You can say it nicely, soften it a little bit. But most people have no problems with that. They pay the plumber that way. They pay the electrician that way. They pay the person that cleans their windows in their office that way, especially one-time deals. So you want to be able to pick up the check and get paid at that time. So that's new business for you. Now the next one is, you're getting repeat business. So let's say you went out there and you did some work. They paid on time. They didn't argue with you, things like that about, I'll just send you a check in 2 weeks. No, they didn't say anything like that. They followed your agreement that you had on the phone. Now, again, I'm talking about people that you don't need a contract with, small type of work. Now, if you're going to do more than just $500, let's say, at a building, this is just an estimate in my mind, then you need a salesperson involved, a customer service rep involved, someone like that who can actually present the contract. Once you present that contract and they follow the contract, then repeat business can be done on based on that original contract terms. And so medium-sized business, you can give them 30 days to pay. You go out, you invoice, you get a signature with a clear description of what the technician did, and then you give them 30 days to pay. And the same thing if let's say they're moving and they say they want a whole new system, they want the whole place cabled and everything else, but you've dealt with this company for months or maybe even years, then you just invoice them when the job's done. It's pretty easy stuff. The last is when you're dealing with large corporations. It's almost humorous. You can't treat them the same as small companies. You got to treat them differently, or even medium-sized companies. Large corporations, and I'm talking about those who have 1,000 employees or more, and I had a handful of those type of corporations. You invoice, and guess what? You may put due upon receipt. In fact, I would tell you to do that. But they're not going to pay 30 days. Most of the big corporations take months to pay you. I remember I worked for Burlington Air Express, and I managed this type of work for them throughout the country, and they had 200 locations all over the country. And when I would get it, I would get a technician, not technician, I'd call up a small business in that area that was going to do work for us. And I would say, hey, I need you to do this type of work and everything else. But I want to warn you that we don't pay in 30 days. We pay in 90 days. And some people would say, no, I don't want to do work for you. I don't want to do that type of work. And that was fine. But I gave them a heads up. And I remember once when I started this job, I didn't know that it took 90 days. And the vendor called up and he said, hey, I invoiced you, 5 weeks ago and I haven't been paid and we need to stay on top of this and everything else. So I did the investigation for him. And I went to my boss and I said, I gave you the invoice. What did you do with it? And she said, well, I passed it up to accounting. And so I went to accounting and I followed the stream. So first of all, my boss would not even release that invoice until the due date. So once it became due, she would release it to accounting. And accounting would wait 30 days to even process a check. And then there would be more delays because it had to be audited. So I would explain to people that it's going to take a long time for you to get paid, at least 2 to 3 months. You count on 3 months when you're dealing with a big corporation. So don't freak out, man. Don't freak out. If you're dealing with someone that has authority to pay you, it's going to take more than 30 days in most cases. They're not going to write you a check. Big corporations aren't going to write checks on the spot. And neither, a lot of times, the medium companies aren't going to write checks on the spot either. So you're going to have to come up with an understanding. And then, of course, a little side note here, always put your invoice due upon receipt, okay? Don't put due within 30 days because people will take 45 days to pay you. So it's due upon receipt. Now, the end of a project, let's say you're out there and you have $20,000 project, $50,000 project and everything else, and you're all done. And your technicians went and they cleaned up all the trash and everything else, and you've done all your training, and of course you got to document all this. You got to make sure that you offered the training at a certain time and who showed up. Because sometimes when you offer the training, people don't show up, and then they gripe about you. Well, they never taught me how to do this. Yes, we did. We had 2 or 3 classes on how to do this or that, and that's what we were required according to contract, and we'll even do more if you like. But you never showed up to any of the classes. So that's always good to be able to show that to the customer. Here is a list, of the people who were in the class, and here is people who did not show up. You can put all the names and then have them sign that they were there. So that's a good thing because you offered the class. You can't force people to go to it. They can, but you can't. So you always want to do that. You want to do the end of project. And then if you can, the person responsible for that project, especially with the bigger companies, especially with big corporations, even small, you just want to walk around and you say, you ordered 10 phones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You see them? And this is the model you ordered. You see the 3 over there? That's one model. 3 over here. That's another model. This is the router you ordered. This is the switch. This is the patch panel. Patch panel's been all tested, labeled, and everything else. We're ready to go, man. That's the type of thing. So you want to walk them through it. Now, the bigger the system, sometimes you get really good at this. And everything is like clean at the very beginning. You want to make sure it's clean, a clean install at the very beginning. But sometimes there's other issues. Oh, that phone's supposed to ring 3 times and transfer over to here. Or now you were supposed to provide patch cords. So what you do is you take your book and you have a little form in there, and you write down each problem that they have. And it's no problem. Don't take it personal. You're going to forget things. They're going to forget things. They're going to forget they didn't order that, or it wasn't in the contract. You sold them 1 router, not 2. You sold them 1 switch, not 3. And so you just have to have that contract there. You have to go through it and say, this is what you ordered. Don't worry, I'll be happy to add. But this is what you ordered, and this is what you have. So you got to get to the point where they sign off, acceptance of the system. So you should have a separate form. And this can all be digitally on a iPad or something like that. And we used to do that. We did everything digitally at the end there, last couple of years on iPads. And as soon as they signed off, it would instantly go to the office. And in that case, if it needed to be invoiced, it would be invoiced within an hour. And the invoice would be sent to them if we gave them a 30-day grace period to pay. So you go through this list, a sign-off list, close a project, I called it, and you go through this list, and at the bottom you would say, it would be written out that these are the only things that will need to be done to complete the contract. And then you would say to the customer, if you're a sales rep, if you're a service rep, or a senior project manager, you would say, when these things are done, I will need to pick up a check, or when these things are done, they're done. Now, you would also have a clue in there that, we would offer come back within 30 days and rearrange things, move the switch higher in the rack, do things like that. Not add deletes. We would do additional programming if needed. We would do changes, because sometimes people want all the changes right away. Then you say, just relax, you got 30 days. I'll even give you more if you need it. But I'm just going to come back once, or maybe your agreement is twice. In the next year, I used to do 1 month. I used to force them to think it through. So, you do all the changes. Then you go back to the customer at the very end and you say, Bob, we've been through all these things. Harry, we've been through all these things. Here are the 10 things that you said needed to be completed to complete the contract. And I'll need to pick up that final check. And now most people say, great, and I would say at the same time, don't forget, you got a 15, 20-year warranty on the cabling behind the wall. And the system has a 10-year warranty, or not 10-year, a 1-year warranty on the equipment, because that's what the manufacturer offers. We're happy to come back and troubleshoot at any time if there's a problem. And so, and at that point, you give them a copy of that sheet where they sign, and it has that little paragraph at the end. And again, get your lawyer. Again, I'm not a lawyer. Each state's a little different, so, and each situation's a tad bit different. So have the lawyer write out the contract. Don't go short on this. Don't sit there and say, I don't need a contract. Yeah. When you go before the judge saying he owes me $20,000, $30,000, the judge is going to say, where's the contract? And if the customer says, I didn't agree to that $10,000 extra addition, say, okay, where's the contract? So you got to have everything written out, and including that last phrase in the system. After these things have been corrected, I agree that the contract is complete and I will pay you. So you need to have that in there. Now, with problem customers, I went to small claims court a handful of times. Small claims, I think it's under $16,000 in California, and I always won. Now, I didn't always get paid because some people went out of business. So it happens. Another little thing I used to do, I haven't done that in like 25 years, but on phone systems, you could program them to turn off at a certain time. So I would program, and I remember I only did this once or twice, and I worked for another company at the time. I was managing their IT staff, their install IT staff, and I would have the system programmed in if I thought they were a shaky customer. Of course, with salesmen, they're all great customers. Now pay me my commission. That would be their answer. But I would put in a little program in the system that would shut down the incoming lines on a certain date. And so I remember this one customer, and I think we programmed it for like 3 months after the install. We just couldn't get paid. They just wouldn't pay us. They just said, well, maybe we'll send a check, and it never appeared, things like that. And one day they called up and they said, hey, our system's not working. I say, no problem, it's under warranty. We'll send a technician right out. And then I would say, but I noticed that we need to get paid. And they would say, oh, okay. Yeah. I say, okay, send a technician. I would say to the technician, do not do any work until that check is in your hand. Now you can do that if you have the contract that says that system belongs to you, not to them, until it's 100% paid for. And that's one of the reasons you want that little phrase in the contract. Till it's 100% paid for, that system belongs to you, your company, not to theirs. And you have a right to go in and remove that. And they've already given you prior permission to go in and take it out. I remember once a guy called up and I had a technician go out and put in like 2 jacks or something. I don't know, something minor. And he said, the jack isn't exactly where I want it. Well, of course, I would always say, is it within 6 feet of where you want it? That gives you some leverage. You can always put a line cord on. There's some technician would do something stupid in the line cord, that was put in somewhere where it shouldn't have been. Yeah, I would change it just like that, no problem. And he said, yeah, I want it on the other side of the room. I said, no problem. I said, so let me do this then. You don't need to pay for it. What we'll do is we'll remove that jack. Now, there's a reason why I wanted to remove that jack. 2 reasons. One is I could pull the cable back and then down where he claimed he wanted it. Maybe we misunderstood him. And we'll put the jack there. We'll repair that hole for you. No problem at all. And he said, no. That's nice to have that jack there. And I said, well, then you're going to have to pay for that jack there. Oh, no, you put it in the wrong place. And I said, well, it's either one or the other. Either pay for the jack where it's at, or we're going to charge you for an additional jack on the other side of the room. And I don't remember how that concluded. The last thing I would say is you should hold on to the password until fully paid. The main password should be in your company's files and not given to the customer until you get that last dollar. Now, I say all this in caution. Most people, it's not a problem. And as I said, my friend does a lot of work on rich people's homes, and he never has a contract. I don't know how he does it, to be honest with you, because some of this equipment, home automation, home entertainment, and it's very profitable for him. He's a very smart individual, but he doesn't have a contract. He never writes anything down, what he's going to charge him. Everything's in guesses. I think it's going to cost you $5,000 to put in that home entertainment center there in your, but they pay, I guess. He's never told me he hasn't paid. Of course, 99.9% of my customers always paid, so I didn't have a problem. Big corporations, never had a problem with a big corporation paying, especially if it's multiple. So we had some big corporations, Ameriquest Mortgage, put in about 400 or 500 sites for them. And there's certain ways you do that. We'll talk about that in another video if you're interested. So send me a text message, not text message, comment. And if I get enough comments, I'll talk about that in another video. There's a certain way to do it that really makes it profitable and easy to do, and also a certain way you manage contractors in another state that really makes it profitable for you and that contractor, making sure they get paid. So there's a lot of things we talked about today. There's a lot of things I've learned the hard way. But once I got some of these things down, I would say 99.99% of the customers paid after being prompted. One last thing, make sure on your invoices that you have a right to charge interest on unpaid invoices. And it should be enough interest so that if they decide to push you out a couple of months and pay other people, then it should be something that hurts them. And I'll tell you where I learned this. I worked for a small Microsoft guy, a 1 or 2 man shop in Orange County, California, and he would contract us to do all the cabling for all his customers. And I was still pretty new in the business, only out there for a year or two, and still struggling financially to support the business. And he started getting behind on his payments to me. So he owed me a couple $1,000s and everything else. And I started calling him, hey, you owe me money, things like that. And he goes, yeah, it's really tight right now. And then one time he said, Jim, come by Monday. I have the money, and I will hand you a check Monday morning. Now, I don't know why I had to drive from San Diego County all the way up to Orange County. It takes about 45 minutes to get to where he lived in a very rich neighborhood. And I had to knock on his home door to get paid, but that's what he asked, and I'm going to get paid. And once I get paid, the next time he's going to pay me up front before I do the work because he was such a slow payer. So, I dutifully got up there at, 9 in the morning, 8 in the morning, whatever, knocked on his door. Why is he there during the week in his house when he's running a business? That was really, I don't think he made it very far. But I knocked on the door, and he came out, and he's in his pajamas. It's a business day. Why is he in his pajamas? And here I have to drive all the way up there, and he says, Jim, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I was in Vegas this weekend. Man, I got a hangover and everything else. I don't have any money. I blew a ton of money in Vegas. And I have just enough to run my own business. And that's like in your face type of thing. I had your money on Friday, but I gambled it. And now I don't have your money, but I got enough money to run my business and pay my bills. But you're tough out of luck, pal. Well, it's because I didn't put past due invoices, the interest. You got to pay interest on past due invoices. I didn't do that. Well, from there on out, I did. And so I never ran into the pajama guy again. And so unprofessional and things like that. Of course, he didn't think about, I have bills too. And I like paying my bills ahead of time. A really good concept there. So anyway, make a long story short. Make a long story short. This is a long story. I eventually got paid, and I never worked for him again. My definition of customers is one who pays. And my definition of a job is done is when the last check clears the bank, and that's when I would pay my commission to my salespeople. Now, you being a salesperson might feel differently. I was a salesperson. As an owner, you get paid after everyone else gets paid, and including the salesperson. So I always told the salesperson, you're not going to get paid unless we get paid. So don't be doing screwy deals, man. And at the same time, you have to stay involved in this. So if you're not getting paid and it's your customer, then you're going to have to give them a call and find out why they're not paying. And if you see something screwy and you're still signing them on to, $20,000, $30,000 contracts, then you are the one that won't get paid also. So it'll be me and you. But everyone else gets paid first as a customer. As a business owner, you're the last one that's paid, including the government gets paid first. So the bottom line is keep the customer involved in the process. The salesperson involved in the process. Let them know what your process is about scope of work, things like that. Make sure they fully understand that before you go out or start signing off on some deals. Thank you for watching. Again, this is Jim Gibson. And you know what I forgot to tell you that's important? Most important for me is please give me a thumbs up if this has been valuable to you. And also please subscribe. I need subscribers. And comment. If you like this, say thanks, Jim. Appreciate the information. If you didn't like it, then tell me. Say I don't like it. You suck. that's fine. And tell me that. I don't mind. It's not offensive. And maybe I'll learn. I've learned from comments. So if this is too long, let me know. If it's too short, let me know. If you want me to cover other topics, let me know. Again, this is Jim Gibson. Thank you for coming to my channel today. Very much appreciate it. I hope you're having a wonderful day.